So, in this video, I decided to do a sort of sequel to my Shad Amy video. Not that I'm going to talk more about Shad Amy, I think the comments of that video did that for me already. Which, by the way, I loved reading and replying to, so don't ever feel shy to comment on one of my videos. I'll always try and respond to you guys. Anyway, one commenter in particular suggested I talk about Sonaze, aka Sonic the Hedgehog and Blaze the Cat. So I figured, hey, that sounds like a good idea. Thanks Kevin_363. So without further ado, here's proof of Sonaze, and surprisingly why I think it could work as a ship. So there is something I'm gonna make clear before I start my video. I'm not using proof from comics or the Twitter takeovers. I've read 0 Sonic comics, and I've only watched a few of the Twitter takeovers. So if you'd like a separate video on me discussing whatever character ship through the Twitter takeovers, I don't know, get this video up to like 200 likes or something. But until then, I'm gonna just focus on the in-game interactions as well as touch on maybe some of the interactions within a few of the shows. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's get down to business. Of course, Sega doesn't have any truly canon relationships within the Sonicverse. So on the technical side of things, literally any ship out there is possible, like Metal Sonic and Amy, which I didn't even know was a thing before a commenter mentioned it. So with that said, both Sonaze as well as Sonaze, which is Silver the Hedgehog and Blaze the Cat, have extremely high potential for romantic situations. Sonic would be a good fit for Blaze since he's much more chill and could relax Blaze a lot, taking the invisible weights she's always carrying off her shoulders. However, Sonaze is a good duo because in general, Silver is a fairly timid and insecure kind of guy, and Blaze gives him the confidence he needs to succeed, while she enjoys his sweet innocence and naivety to a certain degree. But since the initial suggestion for this video was for Sonaze, I'm gonna focus on them for this video. However, I'll probably make a separate Sonaze video in the future if you guys are interested. Now, the first time Sonic ever meets Blaze is in Sonic Rush. She gets taken from her world into his, along with her version of Eggman called Eggmagnega, as well as her version of the Chaos Emeralds called the Soul Emeralds. Blaze is a very serious and weight of the world on her shoulders type of character, having both a very terrifying power of producing/controlling fire, as well as keeping guard of the Soul Emeralds. Within the game, she tries to go about defeating Eggmagnega all by herself, also trying to get back the Soul Emeralds and get back to her homeworld. However, Sonic runs into her and realizes that he should help. Blaze tries to push away Sonic's help at first, insisting that she can do things on her own. But later on in the game, she realizes that it's okay to ask for help, and together they get their respective worlds back to normal. And while most of this game shows a progression of friendship between the characters, the goodbye in particular is rather interesting. Blaze is about ready to go back to her own world, and in usual Blaze fashion, she's relatively closed off about it, saying, roughly, she came to his world as a stranger, so she thinks she should leave that way as well. Basically, she doesn't want any sappy goodbyes, and usually that's Sonic's sentiment as well. Like when he says goodbye to his classic self in things like Sonic Forces and Sonic Generations, he is pretty chill and upbeat about saying goodbye. Same with Chris in Sonic X. And in Sonic Unleashed, when he wakes up to Chip sort of fading away at the end of the game, and he hears his voice for the last time, Sonic doesn't really get weepy over it. He just sort of takes a moment, smiles, and then goes back to running. And then even in Sonic 06, when Elise is all like, "No, Sonic, I'd rather let the world burn than forget you," he just sort of encourages Elise. Nothing overly emotional or sappy about his expression. But with Blaze in this scene, he's the one that's hesitating, it seems. And I even question, did they kiss? Because just look at this scene for a moment. I mean, what is that supposed to be about? They had a similar dialogue situation in Sonic Forces, where you just see their heads and then the words on screen. And when there's usually ellipses like this in that game, a physical action was taking place. Now, in Sonic Forces, it was probably punching that was going on, but I mean, it wouldn't really fit if Sonic randomly clocked Blaze in the face right during this heartfelt goodbye. So, what happened? And he definitely gave her something, because right after the awkward silence displayed on screen, he says, quote, "This is from me." Initially, I thought it meant that he gave her some sort of token or something, but I feel like they would have had a small animation of that if that were the case. And whatever he gave her was more than just a handshake, because Blaze was surprised. Because, I mean, that's what an exclamation mark means, right? So, I mean, I'm grasping at straws here, but I really don't see what else this could be aside from a kiss or maybe a hug. Now, to be fair, the Japanese version of this seems to be a little different and more normal to Sonic's standard of speaking, but that awkward pause is still there. And on top of that, in both games when they start to use their powers or whatever so that Blaze can go back to her own world, Sonic holds on to her with both hands. I guess he could have just been holding on long enough for the power to build up before he finally let go, but again, he's never been so physical with people he says goodbye to like that. He's never physical with people like that in general. I don't know. This whole scene sort of just seems suspiciously romantic to me. But leave a comment if you have another theory. I'm open to suggestions. Anyway, after this, there are some other interactions between Sonic and Blaze, but nothing as massive as what I just mentioned. There's a sequel to Sonic Rush called Sonic Rush Adventure, but I don't think there's anything possibly romantic that happens in this game. Maybe you could try and take something from when Blaze suggests at the end of the game that the Chaos Emeralds brought Sonic to her world for some reason. But they drop whatever that line of thought was supposed to be pretty quickly. And the goodbye is pretty Sonic standard as well, with a handshake and a wave. The next moment that I want to bring up of Sonic and Blaze interacting is within Sonic and the Black Knight. They have a decent moment, though again not as big as the first game I mentioned. Sonic saves Blaze, or technically Percival, since they're in this other world, when she falls off a cliff and almost hits the lava below. Blaze asks why Sonic helped her, and he gives one of his usual sort of charming, sort of snappy answers. But then Caliburn says,
"Save the hugs and kisses for later."
And I find it interesting that Blaze blushes, and Sonic doesn't really deny the fact that he was possibly flirting with her. He was just like, what, you jealous? So I mean, again, usually Sonic is practically allergic to anything considered to be romantic. But in this instance, he seems totally comfortable with it. And I double checked this in the Japanese version again, and the remarks are fairly similar on all sides. And before anyone says too, oh, Blaze is technically Percival, and she doesn't know who Sonic is and all that. True, but Sonic still recognizes Blaze, I mean, I think anyway. It's not really confirmed, but there still is a dynamic there, and if this is along the timeline where he has met her, Blaze still looks like Blaze to him, so he's definitely gonna be kind of attached, no? Finally, the only other semi-interesting thing that Blaze does is in the game Sonic Runners. After the whole problem with Eggman is over and done with, you have a little outro of Blaze, Silver, and Sonic at one portion of the game, for Sonic's birthday. And Blaze basically says, "Parties overwhelm me with all the people, but I want to be here anyway." Now, I'm not going to stand by this one as much because I couldn't find the original English or Japanese version of this particular interaction. I really have to hand it to Crimson X96. They make character interaction compilations of like tons of different characters. That's how I found out most of the interactions for this video and for my Shad Amy video. So shout out to them. But yeah, I'm working with the English translated Spanish version of the game. So let me know if any one of you has the proper English or Japanese version of this game, and what Blaze actually says here, and if it's different or not. So if you stop and think about it, with all the proof that we see here, and also just with a little bit of extra thinking, Sonic and Blaze are a pretty good fit for each other. Both of them are on the less expressive side, and both of them have to deal with slightly more clingy partners in their more quote-unquote canon relationships between Amy and Silver. So I could definitely picture these two being together and everything just sort of flowing instead of the craziness that happens with their other relationships that are sort of pushed. But what do you think? Are these two a good match or not? And am I reading into these pieces of evidence too much or no? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked watching this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!